We are immersed in a matrix of glowing celestial bodies, radiating and reflecting energy and light. Motions of those celestial bodies, galaxies, stars, planets, comets, all conform to laws of physics. Because the laws are the same everywhere, we know that the universe is unified. It is an expression of oneness, we might say. Those laws are not physical objects or even forces. Those laws are mathematical equations. In other words, they are ideas. When we think about the laws of the universe and how the universe came into being, what we are really recognizing is that the laws of creation are laws of mind. The universe is a unified field. Everything is connected to other things. Ultimately, everything is interconnected. We can even see this in the nature of language and words. If you look up the meaning of a word in a dictionary, what you find is more words. And if you continue to trace those words, you will find more words. Every single word in any language derives its meaning from the whole matrix of words in the language. And all of our, and likewise, because we can state our beliefs in words, our beliefs are part of a matrix. And each belief draws its meaning from that unified field of consciousness. Everything is ultimately interconnected. We experience that interconnection at the level of intellectual understanding as coherence. Coherence is a very important test of truth in both philosophy and science. So when our worldview is coherent, we are intellectually perceiving truth. When our worldview is coherent, we are intellectually perceiving truth. When we experience interconnection at the level of feeling, what we are experiencing is what we call love. When we feel the unity of the universe, when we feel oneness, we feel the all-pervading love that we say God is love. God is this universal feeling of the fundamental unity of the universe. All physical bodies conform to mathematical ideas. Stars, atoms, molecules behave according to their geometric properties. They are also ideas. They link up to each other when their geometric forms fit together. Right? If you study chemistry, you know atoms connect and molecules connect primarily because of their geometric form, their charges, as we call them. We call them positive and negative charges because we don't know what else to call them. But they are the fundamental bonding elements of atoms and molecules, but the whole universe is bonded. We are all interconnected in this unified field. And everything that we experience as ideas in our minds. This fact has led some of the greatest philosophers, from Pythagoras and Plato to Berkeley and Hume, to conclude that mind, rather than matter, is the ultimate reality. And likewise, some of the greatest of the modern physicists have concluded that we live in a universe of mind and ideas. In comparing the certainty of things spiritual and things temporal, let's not forget this: mind is the first and most direct thing in our experience. All else is inferred. To put the conclusion crudely, the stuff of the world is mind stuff. This is not the statement of a religious leader or of a philosopher. It's a statement of one of the great physicists of the 20th century, Sir Arthur Eddington, who, among other things, designed the experiment to prove the theory of relativity. And he did it at a time when most people had no idea what the theory of relativity meant. He's just one example of many physicists who have ultimately concluded from relativity and quantum physics that the stuff of the world is mind stuff. Because astrophysics and quantum physics conclude that events are relative to observation, many physicists are idealists rather than materialists. Richard Kahn, professor of physics and astronomy at Johns Hopkins University, wrote an article in 2004 in which he concluded that A correct understanding of what physics does teach us was accessible even to Pythagoras. Number is all things, and numbers are nothing but mental. When I was talking about geometric properties of forms, molecules, atoms, and so on, that is partly what the Pythagoreans meant when they were talking about all things are number. They were talking about the shapes of things as well as the mathematical nature of things. Pythagoras even was the first to recognize the mathematical properties of music and the composition of music. So he was, in effect, the founder of both mathematics and music theory. And he was also a healer, according to the legends about Pythagoras. He was a great healer, and he healed through the use of music and through the use of word. So way back 2,600 years or so ago, Pythagoras is a kind of ancestor of what we today call New Thought. Numbers are nothing but mental, wrote Professor Henry. And he also wrote that with the discovery of quantum mechanics in 1925, the discovery of quantum mechanics in 1925, the whole problem was solved. The problem he's talking about is, what is everything made of? He goes on to say the brighter physicists were led, just as Galileo had been, to believe the unbelievable. In this case, that the universe is mental. After critiquing the old materialist models of the universe, showing that they did not work, Professor Henry concluded anyone who has learned to fully accept that nothing exists except the observations themselves, anyone who recognizes that and accepts it is light years ahead of peers who stumble through physics ever hoping to find out what things are. Things are mental. Objects, like the laws of physics, are ideas in an infinite mind. They are real, not illusionary, though we can have illusions about them. Sometimes people say, well, if the universe is just mental, it's all illusion. No. When we say the universe is mental, what we mean is that's what it is. That's the reality of it. But we can still, of course, have illusions about that. At the level of human consciousness, which is, somewhat limited in its bandwidth, ideas can be misinterpreted and misconceived. And it's those misconceptions that create the illusions. For example, the illusion that the sun goes around the earth, or the illusion that most of us have that our bodies consist of matter, when in fact, everything is mental. Conscious mind is linked to the far greater knowledge of the subconscious mind. And at the deepest level, our individual limited conscious minds and our subconscious minds are linked to an infinite consciousness, the mind of the universe, which we call God. Prayer and meditation, we can access those deeper levels of consciousness. First of all, our own subconscious level, and then ultimately at the deepest level, that infinite consciousness. We can access those deeper levels for a greater understanding of truth and also a deeper experience of the divine unity and love that is fundamental to this unified universe. Even our conscious mind, limited as it may be, is capable through reason to realize truth and dissolve illusions. And even at the level of the conscious mind, we can feel the reality of divine love. Your organization is named for that recognition. Center for Universal Oneness is a recognition of the divine unity and love that is fundamental to the nature of the universe and the infinite mind. An orderly universe requires laws to maintain order, and in that sense, all things conform to perfect mathematical ideas. We live in a perfect universe governed by perfect ideas and perfect laws. Kurt Gödel, probably the greatest mathematician of the 20th century, once wrote down the things that he concluded from his study, not only of mathematics, but also of physics and the rest of science. And he said, we should judge reality by the little which we truly know of it. Since that part which we conceptually know turns out to be so beautiful, the real world of which we know so little should also be beautiful. We may expect that the conceptual world is perfect, and furthermore, that objective reality is beautiful, good, and perfect. We sometimes misunderstand the concept of perfection, and we, as people who are perfectionists, tend to tend to judge themselves by some sort of model of perfection that they have in their mind, what they ought to be. The truth is, everyone is already perfect. Part of our perfection is the ability to continue to unfold um, our fundamental nature, which is good and beautiful and true, as Gödel said. Part of our perfection is the ability to recognize areas of growth and to act to grow in those directions. We have a power to affect our bodies and our conditions through our minds. That's part of our perfection. So perfection is something that we are unfolding and something that we also already are right now. So we talk about laws, the laws of the universe and how everything conforms to that. And all those laws are mind. And at a more interior level, there are laws of mind as well as laws of physics. There's a general law of inner mind or spirit that we can apply to change, to grow, to change forms and conditions, to continue to unfold the perfection that we are. We talk about the law of mind action as if it were one law, when in fact it's more like when we use the term law and say the law of the land. When we talk about the law of the land, we know we're referring to a set of laws, of many laws, rather than just one simple law. So the law of mind action contains within itself sets of different kinds of laws. In fact, we think of it mathematically, there may very well be an infinite number of laws of mind, but I don't have time to talk about an infinite number of laws of mind. So today I'm just going to mention a few. So the general law is that your experience is formed and directed by your mental attention. Wherever you decide to direct your attention, that is what you see, or that is what you experience, or that is what you express. The laws of mind, as internal laws, do not contradict the laws of physics. They are compatible with them. They are, as I say, a sort of more interior form of law at the level of our awareness or of consciousness. It's a little bit like we talk about the law of gravity, and then we develop rockets to send things in space and, in effect, defy the law of gravity. Well, the laws of rocket science don't cancel out the law of gravity. They simply provide us, in a sense, a way to transcend the law of gravity. And in the same way, the laws of mind allow us to transcend temporary conditions. Great spiritual teachers have tended to recognize this general law of mind, going all the way back to Gautama the Buddha in about 400 BC. He said that all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. So the Buddha recognized that what we experience, what we are becoming, I guess you could say, is really fundamentally a matter of our thinking. Jesus put it in terms of belief. Whatsoever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be done for you. Belief is a way of working with, or a fundamental factor, I should say, in the law of mind. What you believe, you tend to receive. What you believe, you tend to experience or create. So focusing on discordant thoughts can disrupt the natural harmony of the body. Focusing on harmonious thoughts can establish harmony in the body. So these are our choices. These are the things we must be mindful of. Are we thinking harmonious thoughts or discordant thoughts? Because each one does something. And the general tendency of our thought, if it is harmonious, the general tendency of our bodies will be to either be whole or to heal. Because your mental states have corresponding physical states. Some are Some mental states are accompanied by an increase in certain molecules, such as, and this is something that's been measured scientifically, certain mental states will increase adrenaline, dopamine, and the various immune system molecules. The fundamental causal chain here, we can think of it this way, or the chain of correspondences, is that your thoughts affect your feelings. Your feelings have corresponding molecular states. Hence, your thoughts can change your body's form, internal form especially, for better or worse. So when we think relaxing thoughts, when we meditate, what we're doing is reducing stress on the body's systems, allowing for a freer flow of energy and therefore a greater dynamism in our health. Loving thoughts, it has been proven, actually strengthen and increase the production of chemicals in the immune system. By concentrating or meditating on love, you can actually give a boost to your immune system. That's been measured. Other things that have been measured are the fact that meditation or experiencing something that you're enthusiastic about, the very act of being enthusiastic, or experiencing simple pleasure boosts the chemical dopamine, which has a variety of body regulation functions. And even more significantly, and somewhat mysteriously, belief in a method of healing can cure an illness, even if the method doesn't actually do anything physiologically. This is the well-known phenomena of the placebo effect. Every medical study includes a control group that doesn't receive anything useful for healing the condition, at least according to scientific understanding of things. And yet, in every one of these studies, some people, sometimes up to 60% of them, experience improvement in their condition, even though they only believe that they've taken a medication, when in fact they have not. They've taken a sugar pill or an inert substance. I believe that the most powerful cure for any human condition is the inner experience of the presence of God, the mystical experience. And so if we concentrate our thoughts on the nature of God, on realizing God, on being open to that infinite mind of which we are a part, which expresses in us and through us, as we focus on that, we experience the ultimate divine love, the ultimate power for good, the ultimate power of the good, the beautiful, and the true. Well, that's roughly how the general law of mind action works. And we can identify, as I said, specific examples of the law of mind. For thousands of years, people have believed in that ultimately actions have appropriate or just consequences. Some have thought that those consequences are mainly imposed by a judgmental God in an afterlife. Hindus have always believed, and Buddhists too, that the consequences in terms of the law of the universe also are carried out in a kind of next incarnation. But they have a name for this law that we're talking about. They call it karma. We can also call it simply the principle of justice. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote an essay about the law of compensation. That's also another name for this law that manifests justice. In Emerson's essay, he concluded that the law of compensation is not something that happens in an afterlife, but something that has instant, immediate effects that either as he put it, expand or contract the soul. Some of you may remember John Lennon's song, "Instant Karma is Going to Get You." That's kind of the idea. As soon as you have a thought, you also have an experience. You also have a consequence of that thought. It may not be immediately apparent, but there it is. And everything that you do has a sort of immediate consequence, not simply in the external world, but in our own internal world. Oldest statement of the law of karma is found in the Upanishads. One becomes good through good karma and evil through evil karma. The word karma simply means works. So one becomes good through good works and evil through evil works. You don't necessarily have to delineate all actions in terms of this dualistic concept of the universe as good and evil, but we can recognize that the quality of our actions uh, determines the quality of the consequences of our actions. I think that Emerson is right, that this law of compensation works immediately. It probably has a cumulative effect. Our consciousness is diminished and weakened by thoughts and actions that are rooted in ignorance or malice. And our consciousness is expanded and strengthened by thoughts rooted in love and knowledge of truth. We always have these options of what are thoughts rooted in. Are they rooted in a knowledge of truth and love? That will expand our consciousness and, of course, generate action that produce, as the Hindus would say, good karma. Law of karma or compensation begins, as all action begins, in mind. Even Jesus recognized this law in a particular way. He didn't call it the law of karma, but he did say the measure you give will be the measure you receive. So fundamentally, from our givingness, we receive. From our consciousness of givingness, from our consciousness of love, good flows back to us. Abundance flows back to us. Our thoughts of love return to us in the form of the harmonization of the body, and so on. So the law of justice or karma or compensation is one of the laws that's recognized, the law of mind. We sometimes think of it as a law of physical action, but really we recognize that all physical action begins in mind. Another law of mind, the law of release, which is meant when you mentally release an idea, you also release the experience of the idea. When you withdraw the energy of your attention from an idea, you diminish the experience of that idea. And this can actually result in a release of physical conditions. Remember that you alone can give power to an idea in your consciousness, and you alone can withdraw power from an idea in your consciousness. Whatever you are giving your consciousness to, you are also giving power to. You can release troubling conditions by withdrawing your attention from the condition. Maybe some of you experienced in your childhood, or maybe some of you as parents have heard this phrase or said this phrase. Don't pick at it. When we are mentally focusing on something, we are picking at it. So don't pick at it. Withdraw the energy of your attention and your mind and your consciousness from that which you do not want to experience. If there's any condition in your life that you want to let go of, you can begin by holding to some truth that you know, some truth that you believe and hold to be true. For example, the idea that the spirit of good, the spirit of God, the good, is the only presence and power in my mind and in my life. And then you can say of the condition, this condition has no power in my mind or life, because the spirit of good is the only power. Therefore, I release it, I loose it, I let it go. Various ways of letting go, withdrawing our attention from that which we do not want to experience, to refocus on that which we do want to experience. So the law of release is the letting go part. Forgiveness is another way that we practice or use this law of release. What you're doing when you consciously forgive someone, when you choose to consciously forgive someone, you are releasing an inner burden that you are carrying, inner burden of anger or resentment, or some other feeling that is counterproductive for your harmonious being. When you forgive, you are, and I'm sure you know this, when you forgive, you are setting yourself free. That's the true meaning of that statement, again, from Jesus: forgive and you will be forgiven. As soon as you have released something, you yourself are released. I found that it's very helpful when trying to forgive, which is not an easy thing to do. It's not always easy, but it's always possible. And I found that one of the best things you can do to set that up is simply to contemplate the power of love within you, power of divine love within you. Let that become magnified, and the power of releasing or forgiving becomes something that you can do, something that is simpler to do. When you are in that state of consciousness of divine love, it becomes in fact difficult to hold on to resentment, Resentment and anger are things that we actually literally have to consciously hold on to. And so at a certain amount of time, they say time heals all wounds. Well, that's partly because it's so difficult to hold on to those kinds of things. We have to kind of keep rehearsing them, keep reminding ourselves of what it is that we're angry about in order to maintain that anger. So there's a law of karma, there's a law of release, and the law of affirmation. And by the way, people might call these laws different things than what I'm calling them, but I hope you recognize or see in them the truth that these things are always operative in our lives. The law of affirmation basically is that the idea is you affirm, you build in your consciousness and in your experience. This law is, in many ways, I think, easier for people to understand and use than the law of release. And that's why there's so much emphasis in New Thought on affirmations and so little on the law of release, or the use of what the metaphysicians used to call denials. The idea is that you mentally and audibly affirm, build up in your consciousness. There's an old, very ancient saying, as within, so without. Whatever you build up in your consciousness becomes part of your experience. If I'm always thinking and saying, I am unhappy, and you probably met people who do that, maybe you've gone through phases of that yourself. I am unhappy, not just saying it outwardly, but inwardly saying it. If that's what you're saying, the only thing that you can inwardly experience is unhappiness. And it also becomes difficult to perceive anything to be happy about. We put a dark shadow over every kind of experience. We magnify the unhappiness in experiences. If you're always telling yourself, I am happy, you inwardly experience happiness and magnify happy experiences. I don't mean in just those words, I am happy or unhappy, but you get the idea. Words that reflect the feeling, right? You magnify whatever you are focusing on. Now, it might seem somewhat pointless to repeat, I am happy over and over again when you don't feel that way, right? However, consider it this way. At some point, the seeming silliness and absurdity of repeating, I am happy when you don't feel that way will ultimately make you laugh, just because it seems silly and absurd. But when you have that moment where you recognize when it seems to you silly and absurd, you suddenly are experiencing a sense of uplift from the laughter. You're letting in a little spark of joy. So sometimes we repeat something over and over again that we don't really believe at it, but at some point there can be a shift. In the case of affirming that you're happy when you don't really feel that way, the shift comes when you think that saying that or thinking that is silly and absurd, and then that very silliness and absurdity causes the shift that expresses laughter. Another way to magnify good, to use the power of affirmation, a very simple way, a way that people use almost naturally, is giving thanks or feeling gratitude. That is actually affirming the good when you give thanks, when you recognize the things that you have that you can be grateful for. Thank you, Spirit, for the gift of life. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, God, for love, for these people in my life. You can use affirmations to build up anything in your consciousness of good. You can use affirmations to build up a consciousness of faith. You can build up consciousness of life or strength or health or harmony or limitless supply. You build it up in your consciousness, and then your life moves in the direction that you are affirming. The most effective forms of affirmation are affirmations of the truth about the ultimate, about the source, about God, about spirit, whatever you call it, universal mind, the universe itself. Affirmations of truth, about your relationship, your oneness with the infinite mind, with the infinite spirit. Because the truth is, you are one with infinite, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, perfect mind. You are one with that. You participate in that. You are an expression of that. You are a vehicle of that. That truth is the foundation, ultimately, of using affirmations and the laws of mind. The law of attraction is another idea of law of mind. Got a lot of attention from the best-selling book, The Secret. I never actually read that book. I scanned a little bit just to see what it was about. But the truth is, for some 20 or 30 years before that book came out, I knew about the law of attraction from my studies at Unity. The law basically is the fact that you perceive and act upon what you direct your attention to. You can apply this law by the use of affirmations or visualizations. And when you do, the results can seem magical, but there's really nothing supernatural about it. We actually use it all the time. Perhaps you've noticed that when you bought a new car and you're driving it down the road, suddenly you become aware of all these other cars that are just like yours. You keep seeing the same model over and over again, and you hadn't noticed all those cars on the highway before because your attention hadn't been on it. Once you got the new car, suddenly you're aware of that car everywhere. Or even if you just wanted a particular kind of car, you suddenly see it everywhere. In the same way, if your attention is on finding a job or other opportunities to improve your life, you begin to perceive more and more of those opportunities. And the very perception of those opportunities and the intention to pursue them increases the probability that you will, in fact, experience those. They will seem to be attracted into your life, or you may seem attracted to them. But you are connecting with the idea in consciousness, and therefore you must connect with the experience, with that which the idea represents. The universe is mind. All objects are ideas in mind, and you experience the ideas you focus on. That idea might be money, it might be possessions, it might be trips to exotic places, or any number of other experiences. By focusing on the possibility of attracting something, you open to the possibility and opportunity to experience it. It's not coincidence, it's just the laws of mind, the laws of the universe at work. There's a particular example or anecdote about the law of attraction that I've always loved. It involved the actor Jim Carrey. He used visualizations and affirmations to attract an opportunity to make $10 million for one movie. The thing to remember about Jim Carrey is that at one time in his life, he was homeless. So he didn't start out a very wealthy person. He simply applied himself to a particular field in which he had talent. But he also used this law of attraction, this law of visualization. He wrote himself a check with the amount that he wanted to receive, and it put a specific date on it. And on the very date that the check, his fake check, if you will, his visualization check had that he would get that, he received and took the opportunity to star in a movie for $10 million. Jim Carrey said, as far as I can tell, this law of attraction is just about letting the universe know what you want and working toward it while letting go of how it comes to pass. It's a very important aspect of the law of attraction, if you will, is not to be too concerned about how the thing is going to happen. Don't try to put it into a particular mold. That just makes it more difficult. Instead, let the universe, as Jim Carrey put it, know what you want and work toward it. He didn't just attract the $10 million by drawing a check and visualizing it. He actually applied his talents to work toward it, and the opportunity then was attracted to him because he held that idea in his consciousness. One last law, the one that's appropriate, I think, for Valentine's Day, is the law of love, because there is a law of love. Whatever you love, you connect to in your consciousness. Right? So if you love someone, you're connected to them. If you love an idea, a particular thing, particular area of study, you are connected already into that which you love. What you love is really indicated by what you generally direct your attention to. And what that means is that you can expand the power of the law of love in your life. You can learn to love by looking for the good in that which you seek to love. Looking for the good in that which you seek to love magnifies or increases the flow and the power of love and connectedness in your life. People say, well, I can't love, I don't know how to love because I don't know how to love God because I don't know what God is. Well, then direct your attention to the idea of God, try to find the ideas of God, learn about God, pray. And in that very action of seeking, you're actually developing what is called the love of God, regardless of whether you think about, regardless of how you think about God or what your conception of God is. Ultimately, my conception is infinite mind, but I recognize that by the very fact of saying it's infinite, I recognize that I don't fully comprehend it. I can understand the concept of infinity, but I can't not consciously, humanly, mentally comprehend it, cannot reach the end, because it is inherently incomprehensible. It doesn't have an end. That's kind of the point. And so any idea that people have of God is probably inadequate, but it directs them towards that ultimate, that in what I call infinite mind or spirit. Emerson said, build therefore your own world. As fast as you conform your life to the pure idea in your mind, that will unfold its great proportions. As fast as you conform your life to the pure idea in your mind, that will unfold its great proportion. The idea of what you are is perfect. And so as you focus on that, you magnify that perfection. You express it more fully. You are already perfect, but perfection doesn't mean you're done. It means you're already perfect. And part of your perfection is the ability to expand the good that you are, the ability to expand your possibilities and your opportunities. You can hold the thought and accept the truth of the perfection of the universe and your own perfection. And that perfection will unfold in your experience, will unfold inevitably in your experience, because it is a law of the universe, and that law cannot fail. So I'd like us to do that now in closing. I realize I've gone a little longer than I'm supposed to, but I would like to do a brief meditation on perfection. Simple affirmation. So I'm going to invite you to take a few moments to breathe and relax. Direct your attention to this idea, open to this idea that the mathematician Gödel mentioned, the perfection of the universe, because it is governed by perfect ideas and perfect laws. I live in a perfect universe governed by perfect law. I'd like you just hold that thought for a few moments and see what unfolds in your consciousness, your idea of the perfect universe governed by perfect law. Open to the idea of the harmony and order, the beauty, the universal mind, that which we call the universe, the glory of the heavens, the beauty of the earth, the beauty of human beings, the beauty of character, people you love. Recognize your own path as an unfolding of your own perfection, that you are perfect now because you have. Part of your perfection is that power to change your conditions, to manifest and express the possibilities you find within yourself. I live in a perfect universe governed by perfect law. Therefore, I express that perfection always. I invite you to become deeply receptive to the perfection that you already are right now, the good that is in you. There is good in you. There is beauty in you. How you know this is the simple fact that people love you. People see that good. People see that beauty. They recognize it. They've been attracted into your life because of the perfection in you and the perfection in them. I am that perfection. I express that perfection. Perfection. Perfectness is not something that you need to become. It's something that you already are. What possibilities within yourself do you want to unfold now? Use the law of affirmation simply by giving thanks within yourself for these possibilities, just for the possibilities that you see for yourself. Believe that you have received it. Giving thanks is a way of developing that belief. Give thanks right now that this, whatever you are visualizing, the good that you are perceiving is now being drawn into your life or being expressed in you. Rest in that gratitude. If there's anyone in your life you wish to pray for, see them now also as an expression of a perfect universe governed by perfect laws. See the perfection in them. Behold the presence of the divine, the divinity within them right now. Know that whatever they may be experiencing is an opportunity to more fully express their perfection through the healing of that condition. Support them in that healing by seeing the wholeness, the life, the perfection that is in them right now. Our minds, our experiences are interconnected through the unity of the universe, through the love of the universe, through the one mind of the universe that we all express. We are connected as we hold others in the truth of their perfection. We support them in expressing it. Thank you, infinite source, infinite mind, for the privilege of being instruments of your perfection. So it is.
So again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jim. That was wonderful.
My pleasure.